Hello and welcome to the HTML5 video series. My name is Brad Traversy and I'll be your instructor throughout this course. This series includes 5 chapters with 3 to 5 sections in each chapter, and I will briefly outline the chapters in this video. So what do we learn? We're going to learn HTML in full, from basic standard tagging system to the document structure, and then we'll progressively move to more complicated features, and ultimately we'll be learning the new HTML5 features like geolocation and canvas, application cache, stuff like that. So we'll basically be learning everything there is to know about HTML. And along with that, we'll be learning about CSS. We'll learn the standard CSS selectors and methods and syntax, and we'll also learn about some of the new CSS3 features and elements and selectors. And also we'll be learning JavaScript. I know that this is an HTML video, but when you're using HTML5, HTML5 is good for the markup and the layout and the presentation, but JavaScript, ultimately we need to use some JavaScript to make it work, to process it. So we will be learning some JavaScript. Okay, so in each chapter, in each section, you'll have some program files, and we're going to be building this. Our main project is going to be called the Blue Developer Directory, and what it is it's a static website with some dynamic HTML5 components. We'll start out with just building, say, a table for the site, or then we'll build the contact form when we learn about forms. And then in the, I believe it's the second chapter, we'll start putting it all together and we'll build the home page. And then in chapter 3 through 5, we'll be adding HTML5 elements to it. There are a few sections, I think, such as the canvas section, when we learn about the canvas feature, that will be doing a small side project that doesn't have anything to do with the Blue Developer Directory, because there are a few things that we're learning about that I couldn't really implement in this website. So we'll just have some side small projects for those aspects. So chapter 1, we're going to learn HTML from the very beginning. We'll have the introduction, and we'll learn about certain tags, paragraphs, headings, stuff like that, how a HTML document is formed with the HTML tags, the head, body tags. And in section 2, we'll actually build a web page, a one-page website, which will have an image. We'll integrate an image and some taggings, some tags. In section 3, we're going to learn about tables and lists. And in section 3, we're actually going to start building our list of developers on the Blue Developer Directory. So it'll be a table with developers along with some information, maybe the city they're in, stuff like that. And then in section 4, we'll have the forms and input. We'll be learning about basic form and input. We're not going to touch the HTML5 new input types or anything like that yet. We're just going to learn the basic syntax of a regular HTML form, and we'll probably do the contact form on the Blue Developer website. So some real good foundation work. Chapter 2, we'll be learning more about CSS. We'll have kind of an intro to CSS in section 1. And in section 2, we're going to learn about separating our content with divs and span tags, and getting the document ready to add a style sheet to. And then in section 3, we'll learn in-depth CSS, which will be external style sheets and all of that good stuff. And then in section 4, we will be putting our site together. We'll be putting the Blue Developer Directory website together. We'll build the home page. We'll style the home page, and we will also add a menu structure, and then we'll add the tables and the forms that we created in Chapter 1 to the website. So it's going to be really cool to have everything just put together. And Chapter 3 is where Chapter 3 is the hard part. It's where we introduce HTML5 and all the new features. Standard HTML is pretty easy to learn. HTML5 has a little bit more of a learning curve because you need to also learn some JavaScript and in some cases some serious CSS. So it'll be a little challenging, but I think that we'll make it through and we'll explain things the best we can. And section 1 will be a basic introduction of what HTML5 is and what it can be and what it can be in the future, because it's definitely, we're in the beginning stages of it now. So I believe that it's going to take us far in the web development world. And in section 2 we'll have new tags and elements, which will be like the new header, footer tags, stuff like that. And then in section 3 we'll have the new input, we'll have the new form stuff, which is the input type. We have the new email input type, or what else is there? The phone number email, the phone number input type, stuff like that. All the new form stuff. We're actually going to convert the form that we built in Chapter 1 into an HTML5 friendly kind of format. So that'll be fun. Chapter 4, we're going to start with learning about Canvas. We're going to make some lines and shapes, and we're even going to do some animation with JavaScript. Section 2, we're going to show you how to detect certain features in your browser to make sure that your browser can do these things, these new HTML5 features. And we're also going to learn basic drag and drop, how to grab something in your browser and bring it over and set it somewhere, which will probably be a side project because there's not really much room for that in the main project we're going to be building. HTML5 media features, which is basically the video and audio new tags, and we're going to be implementing those. We're going to be implementing a video into the About page using HTML5 and JavaScript. Section 4 will be SVG, which it will be about vector graphics and similar to Canvas but different, and we'll be doing some JavaScript with that as well. In Chapter 5, the last chapter, we're going to learn about geolocation, which is, you've probably gone on websites where a little tab pops up and asks for your permission to grab your location so they can use it somehow on the website. And that's the new geolocation feature, which is really cool, and we're going to get into that, and we're going to learn how to use it to put where we are on a map. I think we're going to be integrating it into the registration form on the Blue Developer site so that we don't have to input our location. It can actually find it for us and then place it on a map. And section 2 is web storage, which is basically it's gonna replace JavaScript cookies. It'll allow us to put values on users' local machines on their browser, and then retrieve it at a later time when we need it. If you wanted to put like a welcome Bob at the top of the website, it could get the user's name and then display it. And then we're going to learn about application cache, which is all about offline able pages, so we can cache our sites, our pages, so that people can access them even without an internet connection. And finally, we're going to get into the HTML5 mobile development world, and we don't have a project in that particular section because it would just be too much to build an actual mobile application, but we are going to go over it. We're going to go over everything and how you would actually implement it and what it's doing, what HTML5 has been doing for us for the mobile world. So all kinds of information. So that's it. now let's go start learning some HTML. Alright, so now that we've discussed the basics of HTML, I want to actually jump in and get our hands dirty a little bit and do some HTML programming. You'll see here I've created a small project, and it's just a single web page with all the elements that we've talked about, a heading, paragraph, image tags, styling, title, page layout. So we're going to jump into this now, and you should have these files. You should have the project files, and this is actually located in chapter 1, section 1, and this here, Fave Pick Done, is the finished product. And right now we're just going to recreate this. Now, one of the things that we need to discuss is the editor that you're going to use, which is extremely important. You should use something that you're comfortable with. But for HTML and CSS, we don't need any complicated environments. We could actually use just Notepad, standard Notepad. What I would recommend is Notepad++. It just offers a little more developer-friendly tools to use. So you can download that. Just Google Notepad++. I'm not sure the actual URL, but it's free and it's really easy to use. So that's what I'm going to use for this particular series. Alright, so what I want to do now is create a new file. Let me close this out. I want to create a new file to work with. Now you'll see we have the Fave Pick Done HTML file. I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call it index.html. Let me just do that real quick. Oops. Save as, and you should save the project before you even start. So I'm going to save it to the same folder, chapter 1, section 1, and we're going to name it index.html. So the reason for this, naming it index.html, is so that you don't have to actually type the file name in the browser. So if we had mysite.com/favepick, if we don't want to specify favepickdone.html, then if we name it index.html, the page will load. It automatically loads index.html. So that's why I'm naming this. I mean, it's just, if it's going to be the actual page that you want to load automatically, then you want to name it index.html. So now I want to start the actual code. So we have index.html. Now what we want to do now is just open the index.html in the browser. So I'm going to open it with Chrome, and you can use IE or Firefox or whichever your preference. And the first thing that I want to do, that we have to do in any HTML document, is define the doc type. So we just want to define the doc type, and we want HTML. If we were using XHTML or something else, this would be different, and XHTML doc types are a lot longer as well. So that's the first thing always. And the second thing will be the HTML opening tag. Now you can type as you go the tags, or you can do what I like to do and just close every tag you make, every opening tag, close it right away. That way you don't have any errors, any mistakes in the format. And the next thing we want to do is the head. So we want to open the head tag and close it. And in the head tag, we can do a lot of different things. You can have meta tags, keywords, all kinds of scripts or links to CSS or JavaScript files. But in this project, all we're going to have in the head is the title. So open it, close it. And sometimes I'll leave it on the same line if it's going to be a short amount of content in the tag. So for the title, we're just going to have favorite pick. Now I'm going to save this and go back to the browser, and this is the index.html page, you can see. and reload, and you'll see there's nothing in the inner area here. That's because our content that we have right here is in the head, and in the head is the title, and the title shows up here in the browser bar. I mean in the browser tab. The title is very important for SEO reasons. If you want to, rank well in the search engines, the title is what people will see when you come up in the results. So I mean that's a whole different topic altogether, but just something to know. So what I want to do now is I want to view the source. This is the browser page, the presentation page. I want to view the source through the browser, which could be different depending on which browser you're using. I'm using Chrome. In Chrome you go to Tools and then View Source, and you'll see it's the same thing, and it shows the raw HTML. So it's really good if you want to troubleshoot and if you missed some closing tags or anything like that. So we're just going to leave that open, and then we're going to continue to add HTML to our document. So after the head, we need to have a body. So opening body tag, closing body tag. Now the body is this, is the inner browser. And what we're going to do now is we're going to add a heading tag, an H1 tag. Now I think I mentioned this, but heading tags go H1 through H6, and H1 being the largest, H6 being the smallest. So we're going to have a heading, and we're going to call it favorite pick, just like the title. Close it. Save. I'm pressing Control S to save, just so you know. Now to reload, and there's our H1 tag. And the size of this is determined by the browser because we have no style attached to it, no custom style. So in most of the browsers, it's about the same size, H1 through H6. So next we're going to add the paragraph, and if it's a paragraph or something that has a lot of content, I usually have it on its own line. So I put the paragraph here, and you can see how I'm indenting. Inner tags have an indent. So for the paragraph, let's see, and you can just write anything here. It's not, the content's not really important, it's just the format that we're looking at. It's bright and strong. Alright, so that's in the paragraph tags. I'm going to save, reload, and there's our paragraph. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is add the image. And the image is a singleton tag, as I explained earlier. So it doesn't have a closing tag. We're just going to have the IMG, and the main attribute is source, which points to the image file, wherever that may be. For us, it's actually in the same directory as the HTML file, so we don't have to use any folders or anything like that. So we're just going to put the name of the pic, which is favepik.jpg. Now if you had a folder here called images, and you had the image in the folder, then you would add the images folder to the file name, to the source. And the next thing we want to add to the image tag is the alt, and I'm just gonna put my favorite pic, and then we close it. We don't close, I mean we close the head tag, the beginning tag. There is no ending tag like this. That's wrong. And if this was XHTML, which it's not, we would add the slash like that. So we'll save that, Control S, save, reload, and then we have the image. So as far as markup, as content, we're pretty much done. What we want to do now is separate the parts we want to style and add the selectors, the CSS, to whatever we want to add it to. The first thing I'm going to do is take basically everything and wrap it in a div. So I'm going to put a div right here, an opening div tag, and then a closing one after the image, because this will give us a div tag with everything you see inside of it. And I'm going to do some indenting just to make it more presentable. So we have all that wrapped in a div. I'm going to save it, and you won't see any changes yet because there's no style attached to it. It's just a tag. Alright, so the next thing I want to do is add style to the body. So we're going to add a style attribute. And, excuse me, I need to drink some water. So for the style, we're going to add a margin. We're going to cut the margin out because automatically it adds margin to the body. You can see here it's not flush up against the browser. So we're just going to put margin 0, save, I'll reload, and now you'll see it's flush up against the edges. The next style property I want to do is the background color of the entire body. So we're going to do the background color selector, and we're going to make it gray. Save, reload, and now we have the entire body is gray. And now I want to make this text, I want to change the color of the text to make it white. So we're just going to use color. Now I could just do white, that works. I'll save and reload. But if you want to, usually if you want a more specific color, you would use the hexadecimal value for it as opposed to just writing the color, because I mean there's only so many colors available as text. So if you want, right here I'm going to use the hexadecimal value for white, which is 6 Fs, and I'll save it, reload, and it's white. Now I could change this to the black hexadecimal value, which is 6 zeros, save, and it's black. And then there's others like 6 Cs is light gray, but we're going to keep it white. Okay, so now what we want to do is style the we want to add some style to the div, which is the entire thing, the entire page. And the only style we're going to give to that is going to be a width of 750 pixels. And the reason I chose 750 pixels is because that's how big the image is. So I want the whole thing to end where the edge of the image is. Now I'll save that and reload, but we won't see any changes because we didn't add anything except the width. And now what we want to do is add to the heading. We want to add style to the H1 tag, and we want to zero out the margin just like we did to the body. I'll reload, and you'll see now there's no top space. And I do want to add a padding. Actually, I'll do the background color first. So the background color of the heading is going to be a hexadecimal value for a purplish color, which will be 53324D. Semicolon. You always need a semicolon in the middle separating the selectors. Save, reload, and then you'll see we have the background for the H1 tag. Excuse me. Now what we want to do is add padding to this, because you'll see the H1 tag doesn't have much space. It has almost no space between the edge of the purple and the heading text. So I'm going to add a padding of 5 pixels. Save, reload. Now you'll see it looks much better. There's more space and it looks much more clean. Now the difference between padding and margin, I can show you right now, is that padding is from the edge of the text here the edge of the text to the top of the div. That's the padding. Margin would be from the edge of the div out. So let me just show you if I added a margin of 30 pixels, save, a margin of 30 pixels to the heading, you'll see it's from the outer edge out. Padding, I'll just add 35 just to show you. Padding is the inner spacing. So that's the difference between margin and padding. Let's set those back. Okay, so the next thing will be the paragraph. And you can see there's a lot of space between the paragraph. I want to margin that out. I want to zero out that margin as well. Save, reload. Alt. I forgot the style attribute. Haven't done that in a long time. Reload, and now you see the margin's gone. I do want to add a background color of black. I'll use the hexadecimal value. Reload. What's going on here? Oh. Quote has to be on the end. Save, reload. Now we have a black background. Now I do want to add a little bit of padding to that too. So I'll do padding 5 pixels. And save, reload, and now we have the padding. So it's really taken shape, and we did it in a very small amount of code. And next we'll be talking about tables and lists. Alright, so now that we get the fundamentals of CSS down, I'd like to take it a step further and actually build a home page for the site that we've been working on, the Blue Developer Directory. If you recall, in the past chapter we built a table and we built a contact form that were related to this particular website. This is obviously a fictional company, and the design isn't the best, but I think it's clean, and I think it actually implements everything that we've been talking about to this point, and we're also going to be adding to it, we're going to be adding new features to it as we go along. So first things first, go to your project files, chapter 2, and we're going to go to section 2, project files, and here you'll see we have the done version and we have the parts version. What you're looking at here on the right is the done version, obviously, and in the parts you'll see you might have another file here, but you'll see here I have a no divs and the page outline. What I want to do is open up the no divs HTML, and what this is this exact web page. It's the exact content that's on this page without any styling, without any div tags or CSS. And we can see this. Actually, what I want to do is copy it. I want to copy it all, and then I want to open a new document and paste it in. I'm going to do just what we've been doing. I'm going to save this, and I'm going to save this in, I'm actually going to save this in a folder on my desktop, Blue Developer. You can save it in the project files, or you can create a new folder like I'm doing here, and I'm just going to name this index.html. And if you're using Notepad, you want to make sure that you save it as an HTML file and not a text file. And you'll see if you're using Notepad++, you'll see that and you name it an HTML file, you'll see the colors change, you know, to go along with the HTML coding. So now I want to open up that file. And I want to open it in Chrome. So open with, you can use Chrome, Firefox, whatever your preference. And you'll see here this this doesn't look very good, but it is actually the same exact content as this. Exact. The only difference is there's no div tags or span tags, and there's no styling applied to it. This is the base HTML page. This is what this page looks like if you're viewing HTML only. Alright, so what I want to do now is go back into Notepad, and I want to start making this this. In past sections, what I've done was either inline styling, which would be adding div tags and putting all the style into the markup, or I did style in the head tag, where I'd have I'd have the style, and then I do all the CSS selectors and so forth in there. But we're not going to do that. That's not the best practice. It's not the best way to implement CSS. What we want to do is create a new file, a new CSS file, and link that to this HTML document. So what I'm going to do is, I'm in my home directory. I'm building the site in this blue developer folder, and we have our index that we just created. It's an empty. There's no div, there's no CSS, it's just straight content. So now what I want to do is I want to create the CSS file. And I don't want to put it right here in the root of the directory. What I want to do is create a new folder and call that CSS. Now in here is where we'll have all our style sheets. So what I'm going to do is I want to create a new CSS file, and this process could be different depending on which editor you're using. If you're using Notepad, you want to get a new file, and then you want to save as. We want to save it in the CSS directory that we just created, and we want to save it as a cascading style sheet, and we're going to call it style. So the file is going to be called style.css. Alright, so now you'll see we have our index, we have a CSS folder with the style.css file. Now, as it sits now, they're just files in the same directory. We want to connect them, we want to link them. And I showed you how to do this in the past slideshow, the presentation that I just did. What we want to do is go into the HTML document, and then the head tag we want to link the file, the CSS file. So we want to use link, and then we want to use the rel attribute, and that's going to be style sheet. Now there's two more things we have to do. We have to add the link to the CSS file, so we want to do href, and remember we put it in the CSS folder, so we want to make sure we have that, and it was named style.css. And the last thing we want to do is add a type, and we're going to say text/CSS. Alright, so that should link that CSS file to this HTML document, which is this here. Alright, so I'm going to save this, and if you reload, you're not going to see any difference because we haven't done anything yet. But just to test it out, I'm going to go into the style.css, and I'm going to add a body. For the body, I'm going to say I want the background black. And this is just a test. I'm going to save it, reload, and now you'll see the background's black. So we know that the two files are connected. Get rid of that. So the first thing we're going to look at is the body. We're going to look at styling the body, and which is the whole window, the entire window. You'll see there's a gradient background, and that's not a CSS effect. That's actually an image. And what we did is take a small, thin gradient image, and we repeated it to go horizontally to make it look like it's one large image. If you were to use one large image like this, it would be the size would be very large, and the site would slow down, and it's just not a good thing to do. So what we want to do is just get the image and repeat it. So what I want you to do is to go to your project files, section 2, project files, go to the done folder, and in the images folder you'll see an image called background.png, and if I show you that, I'll show you that, and this is the image. It's a 1 pixel wide. The gradient is all there, it's just so thin that you can't see it, but like I said, if we repeat it, you'll be able to see it. So grab that, copy that, and go back. We're going to go back into where we're building the site, and we actually want to create an images folder. So go to new folder, name that images, and that's where we'll keep all the images for this site and this template, and then paste that background there. Alright, so now it's there. Now it's ready to be, we can add it to our CSS. So So I'll go back to Notepad. Actually, before we do that, I want to add some core styles to the body. The body is the highest occurrence of any element, so whatever we put here will be the default. Like if we put the color black, that'll be the default color for everything else. It'll inherit that color. So I actually want to margin 0 and I want a padding 0. I just like to margin that out and just flatten that out. And then after that, I like to do a text align left, just to make sure everything's aligned to the left. And we want to do font size, and I'm going to say 13 pixels. And font family. Now, if you don't have a font family selector, what it will do is most browsers will use New Times Roman or Times New Roman, and I prefer to use Arial. I think Arial is really clean and easy to read, so we're going to do Arial. And you usually want to put 3 in case the browser doesn't have Arial. So in that case, it'll look for Helvetica, and then if it doesn't have that, it'll use a sans serif font. I'm sorry, I think it's 1R. And that's that. I think that's. Oh, we want to do the color. We're going to give it a color of black. Hexadecimal black is 6 zeros. And finally, we want to do the background. But one thing I want to mention is, now the background image is going to repeat horizontally, and it actually ends. It probably ends around here. So what we want to do is we want to make the actual color, the background color of body, to this blue. If not, the image will end here, and everything below it would be white or whatever the standard, the default color. So we're going to give it a background color. And that color is, one second, that blue color is this. And then finally we want the background image. And how you do an image is you do URL, and then curly braces, not curly braces, sorry, just regular parentheses. Now we want to go to our images. Right now we're in our CSS folder because we're in our CSS sheet. So we want to go out to the directory before it by using the // and then in the images folder, and it was called background. I think it was background.png. Close those. And that's every CSS style ends with a semicolon. Just don't forget that. Alright, so I'm going to save this. I'm going to go over here, reload, and you'll see we have our image. Now, oh, I'm sorry. We have to repeat it horizontally. And this is it's kind of strange, but if you don't add a repeat on a background image, it'll repeat both ways. It'll repeat horizontally and vertically, and that's what it's doing here because we forgot to actually specify which way we want to repeat. So what we want to do is add a background repeat, and we only want it to go horizontally. So we'll do background repeat, and we're going to say repeat X. X is horizontal, Y is vertical. Or we could just have repeat and then have it do both like it is now. So I'm going to save that and reload, and now you'll see it doesn't repeat vertically, it does repeat horizontally. Now you might notice this space here, this blue, this is actually going to be the navigation bar, so that's why the gradient isn't there. That slim 1 pixel image that I showed you, it leaves this area for the navigation. So what I'd like to do now is step away from the style sheet for a moment and just add some div tags and span tags and just separate out the things that we plan on styling. So we're going to go back to index.html, and we're also going to look at the final product just to go by. And let's see, I think the first thing I want to add is a container div. And a container div would be everything. We want everything wrapped up in this container div. And this will give us our width. We can make the width and some other properties of the page. So right directly under body, we want to add a div. We want to do a div ID of container. Now we want to scroll all the way down because it's right after the body tag, so the closing div should be right before the body tag. And like I said in earlier tutorials, I like to mark the ending, so I'll just say container end, just so we know that this particular closing div goes with the container. Now if I save this and reload, we're not going to see any difference, because all we're doing here is attaching divisions, div tags. And the next thing I want to do is create a header div. In the header div, I just want this. I want the logo and the slogan. So directly into that, let's do a div ID of header. And we want this div to be closed right after the slogan. And this will be header end. Alright, and I want to keep this clean, so I'm going to do some indentation. Alright, so now we have the container div, the header div. The next thing I want to do is the menu div. So let's do div ID menu, and this is the menu. It's an unordered list. Let's do some indentation. And whoop. Okay, so now we have the menu div, which is this bar. Whoops, sorry about that. Alright, so we get the menu now, and that's the main menu. Now I want to do this, which I'm going to call the left menu. Actually, let me label this first. So you'll see this H3 with links, which is this here, and this is the entire menu. So we're just going to wrap that up. We're going to wrap that up, and we're going to call it left menu. Let's close that div. Comment left menu end. Alright, just going to indent this a little bit. It's always good to have proper indentation and just good formatting of your code, especially if someone else is going to read it and work on it. It's good to label the ending divs or whatever. Okay, so the next thing I'd say would be this, the main content area. What I'm going to do is, this is going to be a content div, and this is going to be another content div, because you'll see they're in separate blocks. So I'm just going to separate them into two different divs. So let's say content, and I want this to end after this right here, ASP. Alright, it ends there. Alright, so we'll close the div here. Now I'll just label that content 1 end, and let's indent it. Okay, we should actually put spaces after each division, just for better readability. Okay, now we have latest blue developers, which is all this here. So I'm going to do another div of content, and we want to end that here. So I'll just say content to end. Okay. Alright, so that looks good. Now, I mean, we can save it, we can look at it, but there's no difference. We haven't done anything with the divs yet. So, actually, one more thing I want to do, one more set of divs I want to do is around each of these developers, properties, location, and whatever. I want each one to be a div, but I want it to be a class. So, right here I'm going to do div class. I'm just going to call it developer. So each developer will have its own class. Let me just indent these. Okay. Just say developer end. Alright, so you'll see Adam Sullivan. Well, actually, see what I did? I had that H2 within the developer. I don't want that. I want that out of that div. So, alright, so now you'll see Adam Sullivan, and all his information is in this div, this class called developer. So I want to do it to the rest of the next three as well. So I'll just copy this. Rick Monroe, and these are all fake, just made up developers. I can space this out a little. Close that div. Okay, one more. Just copy that. Alright, so now you'll see each section, each developer has its own class called developer. So we can style that class, and whatever we style is going to happen to all four of these. So I think that's it for separating everything on our home page. Oh, one thing I do want to do is, you'll notice the logo here, the word blue is blue, and in the slogan, the find a developer is a light blue. So we need to separate those out, those words. Now we can't use a div tag because remember, a div tag is a block level element. So if we put this blue in a div, developer directory would then go on a new line. So this is a perfect example of where we need to use a span tag, because span tags are in line. So if we go to this is the H1 right here, this is this. What I want to do is put a span around just the word blue. Yeah, just the word blue. I want to put a span. And then in the slogan, find a developer now, we want to put we actually want to put the span around now. Now I wasn't going to actually do any kind of actually, you know what? Yeah, let's take this span and let's give it a class of blue text. So this is not something that's going to happen right now. It's not going to be blue now. We have to define this class in our CSS style sheet, which we will do. And I also want to give this now a class of white text. Alright, so that looks good. Looks like we have all our div tags, all our IDs and classes set. You know, you can't see much yet because we haven't done any styling, but we have all our markup in place, and in the next section we're going to be doing some styling. make this all come together. Alright guys, so up to this point we've created our site, our site's homepage. We've added the content, we've created a style sheet, and we've styled the entire front page. Now what I want to do is actually make this into a website and not just a web page. And what I mean is I want to create these pages. Up in the nav bar you'll see we have Home, About Us, Browse Developers, and Contact Us. I want to add these pages. If I click on the About Us tag now, it just takes us to about.html, but we don't actually have that file in our structure yet. And this is what we have so far. This is what we've done up to this point. Our home page, an images folder, a CSS folder with our style sheet that we just completed. So what I want to do right now is I want you to go to your project files, chapter 2, section 4, and go to project files, parts. Now open up page outline. Now this page outline is what we can use to create new pages. And let me just open it up. Actually, you know what? First thing I want to do, copy everything from the page outline.html. Okay? Now open a new folder, a new file, paste that in, and let's save as. And you can save it wherever you've been saving stuff. Mine was on my desktop, and it was in Blue Developer. And I'm going to save it in the root directory, the same place as index.html, and I'm going to call this about.html. And don't forget to choose HTML as your type. Where are you? There he is. Alright. I'm going to close out the rest of these. So you'll see now I have an about.html. And what this page is everything except the main content. Let me actually open it. Open it in the browser. And you'll see it's everything but the actual content. So we can use this as a shell for all of our pages. And actually, if we go back to our home page, and if you now click on About Us, it'll take you to the page we just created, which is about.html. So now we can just add our about text, and I'm going to do that now. So what we got to do is we got to get the content that we want to put right here, right where it says content here. So go to your project files, section 4, project file parts, and I've created these content pages, and these are not complete web pages. These are just the content for the main part of each page. So if you click on About Content HTML, you want to copy everything here. Okay, copy it from about content.html, and then put it in your about HTML that you're building now, right where it says content here, and a comment. Alright, so now we can save this and go back to visit the about page, and now we have our about content. And the content is just all stuff we've done, H2s, H3, paragraph, very, very simple. This is the simplest page on the site. So, now we have our about page, our home page. So the next thing I want to do is the Browse Developers page. If you go there now, you'll see it, browse.html. It's not here. So what I want you to do now is create a new file, and let's save it. Save it in wherever you're building the site along with me, and save it as browse.html. And you want to make sure that you choose HTML if you're using Notepad, and you want to save it in the same place that you save the index and the about HTML pages. So now that page is created, you can actually see if you go to Browse Developers on the site, it takes you to a blank page. So what we want to do now is we want to add the shell, the outline again. So go back to your project files, and this is in section 4, project files, Blue Web Developer parts, and you want the page outline. This is that shell that we used for the About Us page. So save it, copy everything, go back to your Browse HTML page and paste it. Save it, and now let's see what we have. If we go to Browse, once again we have our shell. So we can keep on adding pages like this, with this using the same header and menus. So if you scroll down on Browse HTML, you'll see the content here comment, and we want to grab that now. So go to your parts folder again and go to browse content.html, and what this is this is the table that we created in chapter 1 with the developers and their locations and so forth. So we want to grab everything and copy it, and then we want to go back to browse.html and we want to paste that right here where it says content here. Okay, so now we save that and reload, and we have the table. It doesn't look perfect yet. We have a couple of things we need to do to it to style it a little better. So let's do that now. Now if you're following along, this is what your structure should look like right now. We have About, Browse, Index, and then we have the CSS and Images folder. So right now, I want to bring up our style sheet. Whoops, I didn't mean to open that in NetBeans. Sorry about that. Let me just get out of this. We want to open this. Well, I want to open this with Notepad++. You can use whatever you want. And these are all the styles that we created in the last section. So we want to look at this table. We want to look at this table and figure out what we need to do to it. And wait 1 second. Just gotta check something. Alright, so first thing I want to do is I want to margin out some stuff. I want to zero out some stuff. So I'm going to take the table row, the table data or table column, and the table heading, and I just want to zero out all those margins. Now if you save and reload, you'll see there's no more margin auto. It's all zeroed out, so that's good. Now the next thing I want to do is add a little bit of padding to just the table. So we'll say table, and I want to do 10 pixels top and bottom, and I want to do 0 left and right. Save, reload, and we just added a little padding to each table. There's 2 tables. So now let's take the headings, which is name, city, skills. We're going to take those are TH, those are table headings, and let's text align center. I like the headings to be centered. And next we want to take the table data, which is a table column, and add some padding. We want to do 5 pixels on top, 20 pixels on the right. Right. 5 pixels on the bottom, 20 pixels on the right. Now this, I could have just did the same thing I did here. Let me just show you. So top and bottom 5 pixels, left and right 20 pixels. This is the exact same. This is the exact same as this. It's just a shorthand way of doing it. This way it would be top, right, bottom, left, and this way would be top and bottom, left and right. So I'll just keep it this way. So save that, reload. Now another thing I want to do is I want to get rid of these underlines for these links. And now that I think about it, I don't want any links to have underlines. So we can actually declare that for all links by just using the A tag. So, and then that would be text decoration, none. Now save, reload, and now we have no more lines. Alright, so we're almost done here. One thing I want to do is I want to increase the font in this table, but I don't want to increase the font on, I mean, I could just do this. I could just go here and say font size, oops, say 110%, save, reload, and it increased the font size, but that will be to all table, all TD, all table columns. So I don't want to do that. I want to single it out. Reload. So if we go back to browse HTML, you'll see, one second, you'll see the table has a class of dev table. So that's what we want to grab to style these two particular tables. Both tables should have that. So we want to go back, and I'm going to go to the bottom and do it. And I want to change the font size for all elements of the table, which would be the TR, the TD. So I'm going to grab something and I'm just going to paste this. And this has given us access to the table itself, the table rows, the table columns, and the table headings. So we're going to increase the font size, and I want the size to be dynamic to the font. I don't want it to say a certain amount of pixels, so I'm just going to say 110%. Save. Now all of the elements are now bigger, 110%. And the last thing I want to do to these elements is I want to add a border on the bottom, and I want it to be dashed, and we'll say we want it to be black. Save, reload. Oh, we're going to do 1 pixel. Save. And there we go. It's starting to take shape. So if I go, I don't know what this double line must be. We must have an empty row or something. Well, it looks good. Huh. Can't see what that, you know what? I think it's because, let's actually take this out and let's put it just for the table rows and the table columns. Okay. Alright, and at that, save, let's reload, and there we go. We got rid of that double column. It's just because we had a bottom border on the actual tables themselves. So the last thing we need to do now is to create our contact page. We have the developer table, we have the about page, the home page. So now just open a new file, create a new file, and save it wherever you've been doing the project, wherever your files are, whether it's in the actual project files structure that came with the video, or wherever you're doing it. I'm doing it on my desktop in a folder called, if I can find it, Blue Developer. And we're going to save this as contact.html. Choose HTML. Alright, so save that. Let's see if it's linked here. Yep. So we get the contact.html page. And you probably know what's next. You want to go and get that outline folder that comes with the project files, parts, page outline, and copy that, copy everything in it, paste it in the contact page, save. Now if we go to contact, we have that shell. Now we just have to add the content here, and you can get that in the project files in the contact_content.html file. And as you probably guessed, this is the form that we created back in chapter 1. So you can see how all the little projects, they're all coming together to make this one website. Let's copy that, and we want to paste that right where it says content here. Alright, so let's save that, see what we got, and here's our form. And you'll see it's not perfect. We have just a couple things we need to do to it before it's ready. So let's go to the style CSS. I'm going to close out the rest of my pages, and let's look at it. The first thing I notice is that the labels aren't the same width. So we have this input box back here, these two are up ahead, so I want these all to line up. So we want to do that on the label element. So, and we'll just do that. I believe these are the only labels on the website, so we don't have to pinpoint which label it is. We'll just do it for just global labels. And what we want to do is, one second, we want to display, we want to do an inline block, and then we just want to add a width of 150 pixels. Save that, reload, and that looks much better. Alright, so that's that. We have the contact page complete. We have the browse developers tables, the about page, the home page. So the site has really come together, and in the next few chapters we'll be introducing some new HTML5 methods and strategies and add upon this site, as well as some other projects.